Cool.
Thank you for all your messages about our Living with Cancer series, where we want to support you and your loved ones. After a diagnosis, not only does someone have to deal with an overwhelming amount of emotions, but often you're given a lot of information to process as well.
That's so true, isn't it? Presenter Michaela Strachan has been to find out the ways medical staff are changing the way they work to make treatment a little easier.
In 2014, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was a big shock.
Getting that phone call from the hospital with the result of the biopsy was a complete shock. And I only really heard one word: cancer. I had cancer. I was utterly terrified. And it felt as if I'd got on a fast train and I had no idea where that journey was going to take me.
The diagnosis was just the beginning of my journey with cancer. Having to navigate the various treatment options and medical terminology was, at times, overwhelming. Around 15 to 20% of people in the UK are thought to be neurodivergent, which means your brain functions in a different way than is considered typical.
Oh, hi, Michaela. Good to meet you.
And if you're one of those people, processing all the information that comes with a cancer diagnosis can be an even greater challenge. Rachel Evans was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma 2 years ago. But what she didn't realise until after her cancer diagnosis is that she also has ADHD.
Rachel, lovely to meet you, and also lovely to be able to say to you that you are cancer-free.
Yes.
Have been for how long?
So I reached remission in March 2023.
How did you find out that you had lymphoma?
I was getting these dizzy spells and nosebleeds and a lot of fatigue, and I was poorly all the time. Then they did a biopsy. Then they said, we want to do a full body PET scan. It came back that it was stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. I asked, if I don't have chemo, how long do I have? And they said 6 months.
Lymphoma is sometimes known as cancer of the immune system. When Rachel found out that she had cancer, she didn't yet know that she had ADHD, so she wasn't prepared for how she would respond to the news.
How did you react to the diagnosis and the treatment?
Shockingly bad. My response was really quite worrying looking back. Basically, there's a whole issue about control. And when you're told that you don't have any control, like chemo or death, have I got any other options? No. So I basically considered dying from it because I was already burnt out with life.
Rachel, when you were going through treatment, how did ADHD affect the treatment, and how did you react to that?
People with ADHD experience burnout anyway from ADHD. So when I had chemo crash. My body would crash on top of the ADHD crash. It was like a double whammy.
Now you've got your ADHD diagnosis, you understand your emotions a little bit better. Looking back on your cancer journey, what advice would you give to health practitioners to help people similar to yourself?
I'd absolutely love to see a healthcare system where there's far more awareness and education and training around this, so that things don't get missed.
Some of those feelings that Rachel had after she was diagnosed are very familiar to me. I also hated being out of control, and I felt uncomfortable with being vulnerable. But I can't imagine how difficult that is when those feelings are heightened with something like ADHD. It must be extremely challenging.
Sarah Hood was diagnosed with leukemia, another type of blood cancer, in January, just 6 months after her partner died. Her family are helping her to look after her 5 children while she undergoes treatment. She also has severe dyslexia, which affects her ability to read and tell the time.
Sarah, can you explain what stage you're at the moment?
Unfortunately, my immune system's quite low. I have tested positive for COVID, and that's why I'm here and having treatment for my leukemia in the isolation unit.
You're also severely dyslexic. How has that affected the way that you've coped with this cancer?
Definitely the fact that you can't read anything. The biggest challenges is them telling you that you've got cancer, and they just hand you leaflet like a leaflet.
It's overwhelming at the best of times, isn't it?
It's hard the best of times for people that gets told they've got cancer, but then someone that gets told they've got it and they can't read to understand what they've got. That hurts. That's hard.
Sarah's not alone. It's thought that 1 in 7 of us are neurodivergent. Thankfully, some healthcare professionals are changing the way they work. Naman Julka Anderson is a radiographer at the Royal Marsden Hospital and a clinical advisor at Macmillan Cancer Support. He's adapted his working practices to accommodate the needs of neurodiverse patients.
When you spot someone or you're told that they're neurodiverse, what sort of things do you put in place to make it easier?
If someone might be autistic and they have to go for a scan, for an MRI, if anyone's ever had one, it's quite loud, even with headphones or music, but actually there are other things that we can do to make them feel more comfortable. So lighting, letting them see the room first. If you're giving written information, if they have dyslexia, for example, they might not understand or be able to comprehend what's there on paper. So we can use sort of illustrations. It's really important that they have someone familiar with them.
Is there any other support that people can do from home?
Macmillan Cancer Support have fantastic easy read options and instructions, leaflets, etc. on our website. There's also podcasts people can listen to, videos, if that helps with the familiarity. Our Macmillan Cancer Support helpline is fantastic. I think as professionals you stand for something bigger, and actually with more and more people being diagnosed with cancer and more people being diagnosed with neurodiversity, it's really important for us to focus on the person in front of you and then hopefully get them through the treatment.
When dealing with a cancer diagnosis, there is a huge amount to process, and it can be very challenging for anyone. Just imagine how hard it must be if you're neurodiverse and you struggle to cope with emotional responses generally. I think we need to have so much more understanding, and I think the lesson is we need to be kind, patient, and treat everybody as an individual.